Captain Hiroshi Tanaka's fingers tightened around his coffee mug as the sensors on the ISS Defender lit up like a Christmas tree. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had picked up something impossible, a tear in the fabric of space-time large enough to swallow Earth's moon. Multiple contacts emerging. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the unprecedented readings scrolling across her screen. Size estimates are, "Sir, the smallest one is bigger than anything we've ever built." Tanaka didn't hesitate. 6 years of commanding humanity's first deep space early warning station had prepared him for this moment. Sound General Quarters. Begin data transmission to Earth Defense Command. And get me a visual. The holographic display flickered to life, showing shapes that shouldn't exist. Massive vessels, their hulls covered in what looked like crystalline growths, emerged from the spatial tear like ancient sea monsters breaching the ocean's surface. Their designs defied human engineering principles, all sharp angles and impossible geometries that hurt the eyes if you stared too long. Incoming transmission, Communications Officer Jin Park announced. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, all languages simultaneously. The message was simple. Your world is now part of the Drachnid Imperium. Submit or face extinction. Tanaka allowed himself a small smile as he opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Zhao, you're going to want to see this. The next few hours became a blur of activity. As the Drachnid fleet approached, Earth's response took shape. Not panic, as the aliens clearly expected, but the culmination of centuries of preparation. Every science fiction story, every space defense program, every what-if scenario humanity had ever conceived was about to pay off. Admiral Zhao's response to the Drachnid ultimatum became instantly legendary. Humanity has imagined this moment for centuries. We fought this war 1,000 times in our minds, our stories, and our dreams. You're not our first alien invasion. You're just the first real one. Welcome to Earth. The Drachnid commander's confusion was evident in their next transmission. Their species had conquered dozens of worlds, all of which either submitted immediately or fought with predictable desperation. But humans were treating this like they'd been expecting it. They hadn't expected the orbital defense grid to activate so quickly. They certainly hadn't expected the quantum entanglement communicators that prevented them from jamming Earth's defenses, and they definitely hadn't expected the scattered reports from their advanced scouts, describing military installations on every continent that seemed specifically designed to resist their standard invasion tactics. Multiple hostile launches detected, Maya reported. They're sending boarding pods toward the station. Tanaka nodded calmly. Activate close-in defense systems, and send our guests the welcome package. The welcome package was a compressed data burst containing humanity's history, every war, every near-extinction event, every time humanity had stared into the abyss and fought back. Ice ages, plagues, world wars, nuclear standoffs, and through it all, countless stories of alien invasions, each one helping humanity refine its defenses against the day they'd face the real thing. The first wave of Drachnid boarding pods discovered something their species had never encountered. Humans had been practicing for this exact scenario for generations. The station's defenders moved with practiced precision, employing tactics refined through years of simulation. As Tanaka coordinated the station's defense, he received one last transmission from the Drachnid command ship. You knew we were coming. His response was simple. We didn't know it would be you specifically, but we knew somebody would try eventually. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our imagination. We've fought this war countless times in our minds. Now we finally get to show you what we've learned. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment. Lieutenant Isabella Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the holographic display of the captured Drachnid fighter. The Singapore Advanced Defense Complex hummed with activity around her, its underground laboratories running 24 hours a day since the invasion began. "Look at this power distribution network," she muttered, manipulating the 3D image with practiced gestures. "They're not even trying to minimize quantum interference. It's like they never had to worry about efficiency." Her team had been working nonstop for 3 weeks, taking apart the alien vessel piece by piece. What started as a desperate race to understand their enemy's technology had turned into something unexpected. They were finding flaws, dozens of them. "Lieutenant, you need to see this," called out Dr. Takeshi Yamamoto, his excitement breaking through his usually calm demeanor. "The crystalline structure in their shield generators. It's not just for power regulation. It's their entire computing architecture." Isabella rushed over, her tired eyes widening as she processed the implications. They built their computers directly into the crystal matrix. That's beautiful, but incredibly vulnerable to harmonic disruption," finished Dr. Ming Liu, already running simulations on her quantum terminal. "One precise frequency, and we could shatter their entire command and control system." The discovery sparked a chain reaction of innovations. Human engineers, who had spent centuries working around the limitations of their technology, saw opportunities the Drachnid had never imagined. Where the aliens had relied on crystalline perfection, humans excelled at making imperfect systems work together. Status report. The voice belonged to General Santos, his hologram materializing in the center of the lab. Isabella straightened, trying to hide her exhaustion. "Sir, we've identified multiple vulnerabilities in their shield technology. More importantly, we've figured out why our early attacks were so ineffective." She pulled up a comparison display. The Drachnid build everything to theoretical perfection. Their systems are elegant, advanced, and completely inflexible. They've never had to deal with an enemy that could adapt to their technology. The general's hologram nodded thoughtfully. "And now they're facing humans." "Exactly, sir. We've already modified 3 of our destroyer escorts with countermeasures based on these findings. Request permission to implement full-scale production." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Isabella's team worked alongside engineers from a dozen nations, sharing discoveries and building upon each other's innovations. What the Drachnid had dismissed as primitive cooperation became their worst nightmare. The first test came sooner than expected. A Drachnid battle group jumped into orbit around Mars, likely expecting to establish a forward base. They found 4 modified Earth ships waiting for them. Isabella watched the sensor feeds from her lab, heart pounding. Everything they'd worked for came down to this moment. The battle began conventionally enough. The Drachnid ships launched their standard opening barrage, their crystalline weapons spitting lances of coherent energy across space. Then Captain Ming gave the order they'd all been waiting for: execute Protocol Lightning. The modified Earth ships responded instantly, their new systems coming online. Each vessel began emitting precisely calculated frequencies, creating a web of quantum interference. The effect on the Drachnid ships was devastating. Their perfect crystalline systems, unable to adapt to the unexpected attack, began to fail catastrophically. "It's working," Isabella whispered, watching the sensor data pour in. "Their shields are collapsing. Their targeting systems are offline. They can't coordinate their attacks." Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. 3 Drachnid vessels destroyed, 2 captured largely intact, and not a single Earth ship lost. It wasn't just a victory. It was proof that humanity could not only fight back, but win. As Isabella's team began analyzing data from the engagement, a message arrived from Earth Defense Command. All engineering teams worldwide are now authorized to implement Lightning Protocol modifications. "Well done, Lieutenant. You've just given Earth its first real advantage in this war." Isabella looked around at her exhausted but triumphant team. "Let's get back to work," she said, pulling up schematics for their next innovation. The Drachnid thought they were looking at primitive savages. Time to show them what human ingenuity really means. Colonel Miguel Santos felt the familiar surge of adrenaline as his boarding pod accelerated toward the Drachnid dreadnought. Around him, 30 Brazilian Space Marines checked their gear one final time, their movements precise despite the electromagnetic storm raging outside. "Remember," he spoke through the tactical network, "we hit them from multiple angles. The Drachnid expect linear attacks. We give them chaos instead." The mission had seemed impossible when first proposed. Board one of the largest enemy vessels ever encountered and seize its command center. But impossibility was a concept humanity had long since abandoned. 3 other pods launched simultaneously: Korean Special Forces, Indonesian Orbital Command, and Indian Cyber Warriors, each bringing their own combat doctrine to the fight. The Drachnid were about to learn why Earth's military diversity was its greatest strength. "Impact in 30 seconds, announced Sergeant Lima, her hand steady on the pod's controls. "Enemy point defense is tracking, but their targeting algorithms can't compensate for our randomized approach vectors." Santos allowed himself a grim smile. Major Kim's Korean defense platforms were keeping the dreadnought's main weapons occupied, while Commander Patel's cyber warfare suite played havoc with their tracking systems. The Drachnid had never faced an enemy that could coordinate such different tactical approaches simultaneously. The pod shuddered as it breached the dreadnought's outer hull. Emergency force field generators activated instantly, containing the breach as Santos' team moved out in practiced formation. The interior was exactly as their simulations had predicted: crystalline corridors designed for efficiency rather than defense. Contact left. The warning came from Corporal Chen as the first Drachnid defenders appeared. The aliens moved with perfect coordination, their hive mind tactical network guiding each action. But perfection had its price. They couldn't adapt when the humans refused to follow expected combat protocols. Santos' team split into smaller units, each operating semi-independently while maintaining overall mission coordination. The Drachnid, used to facing enemies that fought as unified forces, found themselves unable to counter multiple small unit tactics simultaneously. "Korean team has secured their objective," came the update through the command net. "Indonesian forces are engaging enemy reinforcements in Section Gamma." The Brazilian Marines pushed forward, using techniques developed in urban warfare but modified for zero-gravity combat. Each team member could shift from offensive to defensive roles instantly, another concept the Drachnid struggled to counter. They reached a major junction when Commander Patel's voice crackled through the comm. "Cyber breach successful. Their internal security networks are compromised. You have 4 minutes before they can purge our algorithms." Santos didn't waste a second. "All teams, execute Protocol Thunderstorm." The coordinated assault that followed demonstrated why humanity's fractured military history had become its greatest asset. Korean forces deployed sonic disruptors that shattered the crystalline architecture. Indonesian troops used electromagnetic pulse grenades specifically designed to disrupt Drachnid neural networks. Indian cyber warriors turned the ship's own automation against its crew. And through it all, the Brazilian Space Marines advanced with a fluid grace that made warfare look like a deadly dance. Their movements incorporated elements from capoeira, adapted for space combat in ways the Drachnid's tactical computers couldn't predict. "Command center in sight," Santos reported, watching as his team took up breach positions. "All teams, synchronize for final assault." The next 2 minutes became a blur of precise violence. The combined Earth forces struck from multiple directions, each using different tactics but working in perfect harmony. The Drachnid defenders, for all their technological superiority, found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer variety of attacks they faced. When the smoke cleared, Santos stood in the captured command center, Earth's flag now displayed prominently on the main view screen. The message it sent to the Drachnid fleet was clear. Humanity wouldn't just fight back. They would take the war to the enemy's doorstep. "Mission accomplished," he transmitted to Earth Command. "The dreadnought is ours. And wait until you see what we found in their tactical databases." The Drachnid are about to learn that sharing their military secrets with us is a very, very bad idea. General Lena Suryadi watched from her command center as the Drachnid landing ships descended through Jakarta's rain-soaked sky. Their crystalline hulls reflected the lightning storm, creating an eerily beautiful light show above the city. She allowed herself a small smile. They had chosen exactly the wrong place to start their ground invasion. All units, maintain positions, she ordered through the tactical network. Let them land. Let them think they've surprised us. The Indonesian Special Forces had spent decades preparing for urban warfare, though they'd never imagined their opponents would be alien invaders. The megacity's sprawling infrastructure had been subtly modified over the years, turning the entire metropolis into one massive defensive position. First wave touching down in Sector 7, reported Major Putra, his voice steady despite the massive alien vessels, landing less than a kilometer from his position. They're deploying some kind of mechanized units. Configuration unknown. The Drachnid forces moved with mechanical precision, their formations perfect for open battlefield engagement. But Jakarta wasn't an open battlefield. It was a labyrinth of skyscrapers, underground passages, and environmental hazards that the local forces knew intimately. Contact in 5, Lena announced. Execute Protocol Rainmaker. The storm intensified suddenly as weather control systems activated, turning the tropical downpour into a tactical advantage. The Drachnid's energy weapons and sensors, already struggling with Earth's atmospheric conditions, faced additional interference from the electrically charged rain. "This is Captain Montoya," a voice crackled through the command channel. "Andes Mountain Division is observing similar landing patterns in our sector. Permission to coordinate defensive strategies." "Granted," Lena replied, watching as the first wave of Drachnid forces moved into the city. "Share what you learn. Every environment on Earth is a weapon if we use it correctly." The battle erupted in stages, each carefully planned to maximize confusion among the invaders. Underground transit tunnels suddenly flooded, forcing Drachnid units into predetermined killing zones. Buildings that appeared abandoned revealed themselves to be hardened defensive positions. "They're trying to establish a command center in the financial district," Major Putra reported. "Exactly where we predicted." Lena nodded. "Spring the trap. All units, execute Maneuver Thunder Dragon." The defensive strategy unfolded like a deadly chess game. As the Drachnid forces pushed deeper into the city, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to materialize from the very architecture. Indonesian troops used personal gravity manipulators to move vertically through the urban canyon, striking from impossible angles. "Ma'am," her tactical officer called out, "we're getting reports from mountain units worldwide. The Drachnid are attempting simultaneous landings in the Andes, Himalayas, and Rocky Mountains. Send them our data," Lena ordered. "Let them see how we're using the environment. Each terrain type offers different advantages." The reports flowing in painted a picture of humanity's greatest defensive asset, their homeworld itself. In the Andes, Captain Montoya's forces used the thin air and treacherous terrain to trap and isolate Drachnid units. Himalayan defenders turned avalanches into weapons, while Rocky Mountain troops employed underground bunker networks that had been prepared for decades. "Enemy forces attempting to regroup," Major Putra announced. "They're pulling back to their landing zones." "Not this time," Lena said firmly. "All units, advance. Show them why you never give a human army time to dig in on their own territory." The counterattack was devastating. Indonesian forces emerged from hidden positions throughout the city, their weapons and tactics specifically designed for this environment. The Drachnid, who had expected to face primitive resistance, found themselves fighting an enemy that had turned an entire city into a weapon. As the battle reached its crescendo, Lena received a transmission from Earth Defense Command. Pattern confirmed. The Drachnid cannot adapt to Earth's varied environments. All defensive units are now authorized to implement terrain-specific combat protocols. Well done, General. You've just proven that humanity's greatest ally in this war is Earth itself. Fleet Commander Akiko Nakamura studied the holographic battle map, her mind translating the complex movements of spacecraft into patterns reminiscent of her grandmother's go-board. The Drachnid fleet's formations were perfect, their movements precise. And that was exactly their weakness. "They're treating space like a two-dimensional ocean," she murmured, manipulating the tactical display. "Look at how they maintain their battle lines, even in three-dimensional space." Her flagship, the JSS Sakura, hung in high orbit around Neptune, leading the hastily assembled fleet of Earth's most advanced warships. The Drachnid had pushed them back to the outer solar system, but that was about to change. "Multiple enemy contacts approaching through the Kuiper Belt," reported Captain Tanaka. "Standard Drachnid attack formation. Their tactical AI is predicting we'll retreat toward Uranus." Akiko smiled. "But we won't, because we're not playing by their rules anymore. All ships, prepare to execute formation koi dance." Her strategy officers exchanged glances. The maneuver they'd practiced seemed to defy conventional space combat doctrine, which was exactly the point. The Drachnid's tactical computers were programmed to counter logical moves, but humans had long since learned that logic wasn't everything. "Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 3 minutes," Tanaka announced. "Their formation is optimized for maximum fire concentration." "Let them come," Akiko replied calmly. "Lieutenant Patel, status of our quantum field generators." "All ships report ready, Commander. The field will mask our actual positions by approximately 3 light seconds." The Drachnid fleet approached with mechanical precision, their crystalline ships arranging themselves in a perfect attack pattern. Their tactical computers had analyzed thousands of space battles, but they had never encountered a commander who treated space combat like a game of Go. "Now," Akiko ordered, "formation koi dance, execute." The Earth fleet suddenly broke apart, each ship moving in seemingly random patterns. The quantum field generators created multiple ghost images of each vessel, making it impossible for the Drachnid targeting systems to determine their true positions. "Enemy fleet is adjusting," Tanaka reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "Their algorithms can't establish a firing solution." Akiko watched as the Drachnid formation began to lose cohesion. Their perfect battle line, faced with an enemy that refused to follow conventional tactics, started to break down. The alien ships tried to maintain their programmed positions while tracking multiple possible targets, exactly as she had predicted. "Second phase," she commanded. "All ships, initiate Protocol Lightning Storm." The modified Earth vessels activated their new weapon systems, developed from Lieutenant Rodriguez's breakthrough. Quantum harmonics tore through space, disrupting the crystalline architecture of the Drachnid ships. But this time, the attack was coordinated in a pattern based on ancient Go strategies. "Their fleet is splitting apart," Patil announced. "They're trying to regroup, but their tactical AI can't compute our strategy." "Because they're looking for military logic," Akiko explained, moving her ships into the final attack position. "They're not prepared for human intuition. All ships, execute killing stroke." The Earth fleet struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, their attacks coordinated not by computer algorithms, but by human commanders who understood the art of space combat. The Drachnid, their perfect formations shattered, found themselves fighting an enemy that moved like water around stone. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. The largest Drachnid fleet encountered so far had been decisively defeated, with minimal Earth casualties. As debris from the alien vessels drifted through the Kuiper Belt, Akiko received a transmission from Earth Defense Command. "Extraordinary work, Commander." Admiral Zhao's hologram appeared on her bridge. "Your tactical innovations have proven that human intuition trumps alien logic. We're implementing your strategies across all fleets immediately." Akiko nodded, already planning her next move. "The Drachnid still think of space as an empty ocean, Admiral. It's time to show them that in 3 dimensions, there are no limits to how humans can fight." Director Luis Martinez stood in the heart of the Pan American Intelligence Agency's underground command center, watching as streams of decoded Drachnid communications flowed across the quantum displays. Months of analysis had finally revealed something extraordinary, a fatal flaw in the enemy's empire. Their entire civilization is built on perfect obedience, he explained to the assembled cyber warfare experts. Not just their military, everything. Their ships, their weapons, even their civilian infrastructure. It all depends on constant connection to their command hierarchy. Somke Fawisuk, the Thai cyber warfare expert who had helped crack the Drachnid encryption, nodded in agreement. Their crystal technology isn't just for computing. It's a control system. Break the chain of command. And we break their empire. Lewis finished. Show them what we found in the Jupiter intercepts. The holographic display shifted, revealing the complex web of quantum communications that connected every Drachnid ship and installation. What had initially appeared to be redundant command channels was actually something far more significant. A dependency network that the aliens couldn't function without. Their warriors aren't just coordinated, Somte explained, highlighting specific nodes in the network. They're literally incapable of independent action without authorization from their superiors. It's built into their neural architecture. Colonel Chen from Chinese military intelligence leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. That's why they always retreat in exactly the same way. They can't adapt without new orders from command. Lewis brought up another display, this one showing the battle plan they'd coded Operation Starbreaker. Exactly. And now we know how to use that against them. Major Singh, show them what your team discovered about their quantum crystalline resonance. The Indian cyber warfare specialist pulled up his findings, demonstrating how the Drachnid's communication network could be disrupted by precisely timed quantum interference pulses. Their entire system is built on the assumption that their command channels are unbreakable. They never developed a backup plan. Because they never evolved to act independently, Lewis added. Their entire species developed around a hierarchical neural network. They literally cannot comprehend operating without it. The assembled intelligence officers watched as simulations played out, showing how targeted disruptions could cascade through the Drachnid command structure. It wasn't just about jamming communications. It was about introducing subtle errors that would compound exponentially. We've already tested it on a small scale, Somke reported. During the Battle of Titan, we isolated a Drachnid destroyer squadron from their command network. They didn't just become disorganized, they became completely non-functional. Lewis activated the main strategic display, showing the positions of Earth's remaining fleets. Now we're ready for the main operation. We've identified their primary command nodes throughout the solar system. When we strike, we'll hit them all simultaneously. The plan was audacious. Earth's forces would launch coordinated attacks on multiple Drachnid command ships, not to destroy them, but to inject quantum viruses into their crystalline networks. The viruses would spread through their command structure, introducing microscopic errors that would multiply with each transmission. Think of it like a computer virus that targets their entire society, Somche explained. Every order they send will become slightly corrupted. Every response will compound the errors. Within hours, their entire command structure will collapse under its own weight. The operation launched at dawn, Earth time. As the sun rose over the Pacific, quantum disruption pulses struck Drachnid command ships throughout the solar system. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then reports started flooding in. Drachnid ships began executing contradictory orders. Battle groups turned on each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Some vessels simply stopped moving, their crews paralyzed without clear instructions from their superiors. It's working better than we predicted, Lewis observed, watching the chaos spread through enemy ranks. They're not just confused. They're experiencing the one thing their species never evolved to handle, the need to think for themselves. As the operation unfolded, Earth's forces pressed their advantage. The Drachnid Empire, built on perfect obedience and unbreakable command chains, was about to learn the hard way why humans had evolved to function in chaos. Commander Yuki Yamamoto watched through the viewport as her unconventional fleet took position among Saturn's rings. Mining ships retrofitted with weapon systems, cargo haulers converted into carriers, and civilian vessels transformed into warships. Humanity's ingenuity on full display. Drachnid main fleet detected entering the outer ring system, reported Lieutenant Kruz from her tactical station aboard the converted mining vessel JSS Minegard. 17 capital ships, over 40 support vessels. They're moving exactly as predicted. Yuki smiled grimly. The Drachnid never learned. Their tactical computers still tried to treat space warfare like naval combat in 2 dimensions. Saturn's rings weren't just cover. They were about to become a weapon. All ships, maintain emission control, she ordered through the encrypted quantum network. Let them think they're hunting defenseless civilian vessels. Task Force Lightning, prepare ice harvester rays for maximum yield. The plan was audacious, combining centuries of human naval tactics with cutting-edge space mining technology. The Drachnid's main armada, fresh from their defeats in the inner solar system, sought to establish a new base of operations around Saturn. They never considered that the rings themselves could be turned against them. Enemy fleet entering optimal range, Kruz announced. Their formation is spreading to maximum weapons coverage. They still haven't detected our modifications to the ring particles. Over the past week, Yuki's engineers had seeded specific sections of Saturn's rings with quantum-enhanced ice crystals. To the Drachnid sensors, they appeared as normal debris. In reality, each crystal had been precisely calibrated to resonate with their ship's crystalline architecture. Launch Operation Starfall, Yuki commanded. All mining vessels begin primary sequence. Dozens of modified ice harvester beams activated simultaneously, their frequencies carefully tuned. The ring particles around the Drachnid fleet began to vibrate in perfect harmony, creating a cascading resonance effect that played havoc with their crystalline systems. Multiple enemy ships reporting shield fluctuations, Kruz reported, excitement creeping into her voice. Their formations are breaking down. They can't maintain stable power distribution. The Drachnid responded exactly as human naval doctrine predicted. They attempted to break out of the trap by pushing forward. It was exactly what Yuki had planned for. All ships, execute Maelstrom Protocol, she ordered. Show them why you never trap a human fleet against a gravity well. Her converted civilian ships suddenly revealed their true nature. Mining lasers, originally designed to cut through ice and rock, had been modified into devastating weapons. Cargo tractors became gravity weapons, turning Saturn's rings into swarms of high-velocity projectiles. Enemy flagship is attempting to coordinate a counterattack, Kruz called out. But their tactical computers can't process our unconventional loadouts. They don't know which ships to target first. That was the beauty of using converted civilian vessels. There was no standard template for the Drachnid to analyze. Each ship was unique, a testament to human creativity and adaptation. Task Force Thunder. Execute pincer movement, Yuki commanded. Use the ring shadows for cover. Remember your old Earth naval training. Crossing the T works in space just as well as it did on the oceans. The battle transformed into a deadly dance through Saturn's rings. Human ships weaved between ice and rock, using centuries-old naval tactics adapted for 3-dimensional space. The Drachnid, their perfect formations shattered, found themselves fighting an enemy that treated asteroid fields as coral reefs and gas giant storms as ocean currents. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Kruz announced triumphantly. 6 capital ships destroyed, 3 captured. The rest are jumping out of the system. Their coordination is completely broken. Yuki watched as the remaining Drachnid ships fled, their once mighty armada reduced to scattered remnants. The Battle of Saturn's Rings would be remembered not just for its strategic importance, but for proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Send word to Earth Defense Command, she ordered. The outer solar system is secured. And let them know, the age of the star hunters has begun. Humanity isn't just defending anymore. We're taking the fight to them. Ambassador Elena Torres stood at the observation deck of the United Earth Embassy on Drachnid Prime, watching crystalline ships from a dozen species dock at the massive space station. 3 years ago, this would have been impossible. The Drachnid Imperium had forbidden different species from direct contact. Now, the galaxy was changing. The Centaurian delegation has arrived, reported her aide, Lieutenant Zhao, and Commander Liu's peacekeeping fleet is in position to escort the Proximan representatives through the neutral zone. Elena nodded, adjusting her formal diplomatic attire. Today's negotiations would reshape the galaxy's power structure and prove that humanity's greatest victory wasn't won through force of arms alone. "Tell me about the mood in the outer sectors," she asked, turning to face the holographic display of disputed territories. "Improving steadily," Lieutenant Zhao replied. "Commander Liu's peacekeeping operations have shown remarkable success. The former Drachnid colonies are beginning to establish their own governance systems, many based on Earth's various models." The display showed the transformed regions of space, where the Drachnid had once enforced rigid control. New trade routes bloomed. Former slave worlds were becoming trading partners. The galaxy was learning that cooperation could be more powerful than conquest. "Incoming transmission from the JSS Harmony," Zhao announced. "Commander Liu requests to share some remarkable findings." The commander's hologram materialized, his expression thoughtful. "Ambassador, we've completed our survey of the former Drachnid military installations. What we found, it's changing how we understand their society." Elena gestured for him to continue, already suspecting what they'd discovered. The past months had revealed layers of complexity in Drachnid civilization that no one had suspected during the war. Their rigid hierarchy wasn't just cultural, Liu explained, sharing detailed scans. It was a response to their own history. They feared chaos so much that they engineered their entire society to prevent it. When we shattered their command structure, we didn't just defeat them, we forced them to confront their own potential for growth. The evidence was visible in the changed behavior of Drachnid representatives. Those who had survived the collapse of their control networks had begun developing something their species had suppressed for millennia: individual initiative. "The peace delegation is ready," Zhao reported, including 3 Drachnid members who have specifically requested to learn about human decision-making processes. Elena smiled. This was why Earth's victory had led to peace rather than another empire. Humanity had learned through its own bloody history that true strength came not from control, but from diversity and adaptation. "Commander Liu, please bring your fleet into ceremonial formation," she requested. "Today we show the galaxy that Earth's greatest export isn't our military might. It's our capacity for change." The peace conference that followed would be remembered as the moment the galaxy transformed. Representatives from formerly enslaved worlds sat alongside their previous masters. Trade agreements replaced conquest treaties, and at the center of it all, human diplomats helped forge connections between species that had never been allowed to interact. "The Drachnid asked me something fascinating today," Elena shared with Liu after the main session. "They wanted to know how humans maintain order without absolute control. I told them to watch our ships." Outside the station's vast windows, Earth vessels demonstrated their answer. Each ship moved independently, yet in perfect coordination with the others. No central control, no rigid hierarchy, just shared purpose and mutual trust. "We're teaching them that strength comes from unity, not uniformity," Liu observed. "Each vessel, like each culture on Earth, brings its own approach. Together, we're stronger than any empire could ever be." As the conference concluded, Elena received a message from Earth Command that brought tears to her eyes. The last Drachnid holdout fleet has requested amnesty. Not in surrender, but in desire to learn. Humanity's greatest victory isn't that we won the war. It's that we shown the galaxy a better way to live. The stars outside seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the dawn of a new era. Humanity had proved itself not just as warriors, but as teachers, diplomats, and guides for a galaxy learning to embrace change rather than fear it.